Hey there, podcast listeners. Exciting news. My new audiobook, The Short Book Formula, A Financial Professional's Guide to Writing a Book in 6 Weeks to Attract Ideal Clients, is out now. And the best part, for a limited time, we're offering this audiobook to you for free. Hurry over to www.theshortbookformula.com and claim your copy now. And now, on to our show. If you're like most advisors I know, you're caught in a familiar trap. Your clients love you, they're happy with your service, they tell you how much value you bring to their lives, yet somehow those glowing testimonials rarely turn into actual referrals. You've heard all the usual advice: just ask for referrals, offer incentives, remind clients you're taking new business. But when you try these approaches, they feel awkward and forced. Or worse, you get the dreaded, "I'll keep you in mind," or "I gave out your name," which almost never leads to anything. Our guest today proves there's a better way. Dan Allison has not only cracked the code on why traditional referral strategies fail, but has developed a proven system that transforms satisfied clients into active advocates. He's taken what many of us thought was impossible, generating consistent referrals without awkward asks or damaging client relationships, and turned it into a repeatable process. And now he helps advisors across the country do the same. Drawing from his unique background in clinical and behavioral psychology, Dan has built Feedback Marketing Group into the go-to resource for advisors who want to understand the psychology behind why clients refer or don't. Dan, welcome to the show.
Hey, Paul, good seeing you, man.
I'm excited to have this conversation. I would love, just for our audience, if this is the first time that they're getting to know you, tell us about where you started and how you got into the role that you are today.
I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. My first company was in the clinical and behavioral psychology, the mental health space, but I never went on to get my doctorate and become a psychologist. I owned a real estate and mortgage banking company after that. An insurance wholesale company. I never got a real estate license or a life insurance license. I remember somebody, when I was acquiring the life insurance company, saying, it's a 45-year-old company that I bought. And the senior staff said, "What qualifies you to run this company? You don't even have a life insurance license." And I remember the meeting, and I said, with all due respect, around this table is 400 years of life insurance knowledge. The reason the company's not succeeding is not life insurance knowledge. It's entrepreneurship. It's vision. It's strategy execution. I don't care if you're selling life insurance or hot dogs. 95% of it is the same and 5% is product knowledge. I've always looked as being an entrepreneur, skill sets are transferable as long as you're passionate about what you're doing. So my background originally went to college, undergrad and grad school for clinical psychology. I started a company during grad school that had facilities for kids with serious mental health issues, so schizophrenia, bipolar disorder. My partner and I launched the company with a $10,000 line of credit. We were dead broke back then. We were employee number 1 and number 2. And within 5 years, we had grown the company. I think we, at that time, had 600 and some employees, 70 plus facilities. And the 800-pound gorilla of the industry came by and said, "We want you guys to go away. So we're going to write a big check and buy this thing." So at 27 years old, I had my first 8-figure exit. Awesome. Like, first time out, lightning in a bottle. I loved it. But about a month after I sold it, I realized what a non-compete clause actually means. I signed a 5-year deal that in no way, shape, or form could I engage in the mental health field. My plan was I'll find something to do for 5 years and then I'll use their money to start another company and compete with them. I found the finance industry and never went back. I bought an insurance wholesale operation, and independent financial advisors were the customer of that company. And I had an advisor, but I had never seen behind the curtain of what it's like to be one. I thought it had to be an easy profession. In the mental health field, you line up 1,000 people, maybe one of them needs your help. In the finance industry, I thought you line up 1,000 people, they all need help with money. So you got to have a parking lot full of prospects at 8 a.m. waiting for your office. I had no clue how hard it was. So as I started to see that, I saw that the majority of advisors' referrals were the primary way they wanted to grow. But when I would push them for what's your strategy for doing it, like, how do you make it consistent, a steady flow? I rarely got any answer. Most of them were, wish, hope, and pray that if I just give them a good experience, it'll happen. It does, but very unpredictably and not nearly as much as it could. So back then I decided referring's a behavior like anything else. That's my core competency. I'm going to start researching the behavior of referring. So I began back then conducting focus groups with affluent and mass affluent clients to understand why they refer, why they don't, when they do it, how do they do it. I knew if I could understand the motivations and the behaviors, I could help coach our advisors on how to overcome that challenge and unlock more referrals. So 21 years later, we've interviewed thousands of clients, COIs, lawyers, CPAs, all over the world about referral behavior. And then we coach advisors through a platform and a system for how do you engage these clients in the right way so referrals occur frequently and consistently.
It's interesting. I don't think that people always appreciate, but just 20 years ago or however long ago, it was transactional, right? And so the referral risk was much lower. And so why not go for it? Where today the referral risk is much higher. And I think people are really hesitant. I'd like to focus in going forward in our conversation in two areas that are of most interest to me and by extension, I think our listeners. First is that there's really, I would say, two types of referrals. There's the client referral, but then there's the COI referral. And a lot of people talk about the client referral. I'd like to shift gears into that COI referral. So, for example, financial advisor, typically they're told and think about COIs. And to me, the benefit of that, of course, is I'd rather get 10, 20, 50 introductions and referrals from a trusted source than I would just one by one. It's leverage. It saves a lot of time. At the same time, I think, especially when trying to create CPAs or anyone else as those COIs, I think if people are generally bad at the one-to-one client referral, they're even worse at the center of influence referral. So share with us your thoughts, wisdom, etc., on what you see when it comes to that COI referral.
Yeah, but it's funny, Paul. I literally, before I hopped on your pod, I was on a call with one of my long-term retainer clients. He's the coach, but it was CEO. They manage 35 billion of assets, so it's not a small firm. They're funded by private equity, and their target is the CPA space, regional, and they want to be the number one go-to resource in the COI market, specifically CPAs. Nope. They have 100 advisors and I coach them in teams. And I gave him the summary that in theory, your messaging is good. We are the number one trusted whatever for CPAs, but the execution is awful because they're just running around talking to CPAs, doing lunch and learns. And when I ask, when you went into the meeting, what was your intention and your desired engagement and outcome? How do you know if it was successful? And now that you've done the meeting, what is the next step? And every time it's like, I don't know, I think we had a good lunch and I'll follow up. So I'll tell you what, COIs, when we interview all the clients we've interviewed, I always ask, why don't you refer your advisor to more people?
I just want to underscore that for our audience is that one of the things I think is so unique about your approach is that most of us come from, hey, this is my experience. Hey, maybe I've trained or coached a handful of people and this is what I'm seeing. But you've literally not only the scale of the people that you've worked with, but also the approach of actually doing focus groups. Think about it. In the most competitive arenas that exist today, say politics, they spend a lot of money on focus groups because they need to get that messaging right, and it can save them a lot of time and trial and error. And so I just wanted to underscore that your approach is really backed by a lot of research, I would say, primarily in the area of focus groups.
Absolutely. And I tell advisors that these aren't my opinions. I'm just reporting back. I'm told by the people you want to help, right? The kind of clients you want to refer. All I do is ask them. My company was called Feedback Marketing Group. The whole concept is if I want to market my services to a community of people that will find me valuable and irreplaceable, whether that's COIs or clients, getting their feedback on how to do that effectively is the first step. When I can tell they're like, love the advisor. At some point, I will ask, why don't you refer your advisor to more people? And when it's a client, the number one response is some variation of they don't talk about it. They've never asked about it. Man, my advisor's really busy. I'm not sure they're even taking new clients. 50% of the clients we interview aren't even aware if their advisor has capacity to help more clients. Think about that. those aren't going to be effective advocates. They don't even know for sure when they see the advisor and say, how's business? The advisor's, it's crazy, man. We're really busy. And they give this persona of capacity. When I move to the COI space and ask that same question, by a mile, the answer is some variation of risk. They feel making a confident recommendation to a client who's really important to them, you need to go see this advisor to get a resolution to this problem. They find a tremendous amount of risk in doing that. Yep. Reputation risk, monetary risk. If my client gets mad enough that they leave, I could lose. Most of them are very hesitant to open those floodgates. They're very protective of that client base. What I look at with the COI space is, like you said, Paul, if you can establish this great reciprocal relationship where you refer a CPA and they refer back, without a doubt, they are the best market for high quality referrals. The problem is most advisors think they have a reciprocal relationship. Yeah, I got this CPA and man, I sent him 10 clients last year. I've gotten one client in the last 3 years, right? Yep. They have this false expectation of reciprocity and they don't know what's wrong. And so again, going to the feedback marketing concept, if I want to bring value to a COI enough that they say, I want you to talk to my clients, the COI's got to teach me how to do. I need to understand, how do you define value when it comes to a collaborative relationship with an advisor? And how do you define risk when you think about confidently endorsing an advisor or wealth management firm to your client? What does that feel like? What has been your past experience? Because that CPA is bringing with them every stereotype, every experience, every good, bad, and ugly. And I need to understand those things if I'm going to try to bring value to them and lower risk. And too many advisors want to get in front of a COI, present their value prop, and think that COI is going to be like, where you been my whole life? Here's all my clients. Ain't going to happen. It's a patient process that normally starts with bringing value to the COI for a period of time in the form of education, resources, making them smarter in areas they need to be smarter to be more valuable to their clients. You have to demonstrate competency, expertise.
One of my favorite strategies, and just the context is that my company helps advisors write and publish books. And then the question's always, okay, I wrote the book, now what? I want someone other than my mom to read the book. I've been focused on developing and helping advisors execute just a number of strategies that they can take advantage. But I think probably currently one of my favorite ones is that when they have these COI relationships, is to leverage the book as a tool. And I'll give you a concrete example. I have one client in mind. His firm manages upwards 10 plus billion in assets under management. He has 100 advisors. They do really well when it comes to CPA relationships. So they already have the CPAs in place. What we're doing together is that we're offering the CPA the opportunity to write a custom forward for the book. We're private printing this, meaning that you're not going to go to Amazon and find 50 copies of the book, but instead it's private printed. So you decide selectively who it goes out to. But what I'm seeing happening, which I'm just thrilled by, is that he's getting the buy-in from the CPA. So they're doing two things. One, they're writing a custom forward for the book. So they have ownership of it. So now it's not just, hey, my advice, this person's book, but now it's our book, which is a huge mind shift change. The second thing is that now they're invested in the process. So actually they're proactively sending out a letter and a copy of the book to their entire client base, or at least the segment that it relates to, and saying, hey, essentially, I wrote the forward on this book. This is the wealth management firm that I use. I recommend them, etc. In my mind, what you're getting is you're getting that trust, I would almost say squared, because authorship creates a lot of trust. It accelerates the speed of trust, as I like to say. Now, when you have a COI sending out this email to their existing clients who already trust them, that's where you're getting this trust squared. And the results have been fantastic. I want to get your feedback and thoughts on that.
I think having a book is instant credibility, period. If you think about whether it's a COI or a client trying to refer somebody to you, back in the old days, it was give a business card or whatever, right? But if you're looking at ways to establish credibility before you're able to meet a prospect, or you have a prospect coming in and you want to do a little work but to establish some credibility and trust beforehand, there is nothing cooler than being able to say, hey, I'm going to send you a copy of my book, or hey, I'm going to email my advisor and connect you. Here's a copy of their book. This will give you an idea of some of the things they talk about and their expertise in this area. It's instant credibility. If you're trying to form a relationship with a COI that does not want to grow their business, is not trying to improve and become smarter and more valuable, you are wasting your time. And there are a lot of CPAs that are at capacity. They don't want more clients. So what is in it for them to take any risk to recommend to you? So that to me is what's unique about COIs is you're a prospect for them also. So I always start there, and we've got a process built out for how do you structure that meeting. And I structure it just by saying, look, I told you, we come across clients all the time that need support in your space. And I just want to learn more about your firm, the background, all the different things you help people with. If there was one or two areas that you really love to work in, what are those areas? Who's your target market? What kind of challenges do your clients typically have? I'm trying to learn to vet them for my clients. Also, they're telling me of all the things that I help people with, where should I most likely focus my time to talk? So if they're talking about we help senior citizens, I'm not going to be sharing my strategy for helping budding entrepreneurs. But if they're in the business market and they work with entrepreneurs and that really is their ideal client profile, I'm going to focus on that part of what I do and how we normally solve the challenges there. So to me, it starts with feedback and learning about them, talking about us with a next action of I would like to learn more about that one specific service. I have a lot of clients that need help in that area. And I think I would be better if I was smarter in that area. And is there an area that we work in that you would like to dive deeper into? So my initial meeting, my objective is a second meeting that's more laser focused on our core competencies. And we're like teaching one another. And the goal is building trust, leaving each meeting with a next step already identified of what I want to have happen. That's the beginning of what will evolve into a solid COI relationship.
Just wanted to finish off by asking you two questions. Is there any question that I haven't asked you that you'd like to share? And finally, where can people reach out to you?
I think, Paul, number one, thanks for the time. Number two, I love what you're doing with the books. I actually met somebody you did a book for named Anton. Yeah, sharp guy. Loved getting to know him. He's got a fascinating company in the COI connection space with advisors. He was really cool to talk to. But one of the things that I think your listeners, if they're listening at this point, it's because referrals are something they maybe struggle with or want to get better at. I just want to give them kind of one takeaway, one thing that I see consistently that if they can handle better, they can move the needle tomorrow, right? It's one thing they could implement our whole process and get all the coaching and that. I mentioned that when we've done research ourselves, but then we also partner with Dimensional Funds, which is a global fund company who does massive research around the world in a variety of things. So we find that when 98% of clients, anywhere from 90 to 98, depending on the study, say that they're willing to refer an advisor, but in their research over the last 8 years, and we've participated every year in writing questions for their studies, they find that 51% of clients think they have referred their advisor to somebody, at least one new client in the last 12 months, 51%. And more than 30% think they referred more than one. Think about the metrics. If I have 100 clients, minimum, I should get 51 referrals this year. Nobody has those metrics, right? What we find, the actual problem there is those people 81% of the time are giving the advisor's contact information. Hey, you got to call my guy, John. Here's his number. Sometimes they never even tell their advisor they did that. Every now and then, hey, by the way, I gave your name to someone the other day. So here's what I'd love advisors to think about. I always tell them all the growth that you would like to achieve in your business already happened last year, just not effectively. If you could rope in all the times that a client gave your name to somebody and those people became clients, you would never hire me. So it's not an issue of like convincing clients who don't want to refer or think money is private, trying to objection handle them into referring. That's not the issue. It's let's identify the people that are willing and even trying, and let's make them more effective at what they're trying to do, which this is what I want your listeners to understand. Think about the most popular methods of talking about referrals from back in the day. I get paid in two ways. The greatest compliment you could give me is a referral. Don't keep me a secret. When I interview clients, we ask, have you ever referred anybody? And when they say yes, we ask, can we talk about the last person that you referred to your advisor? It was my brother. Here was the situation. I'll ask them, why did you do it? Because it's risky. If something went wrong that could impact your relationship with your brother, why'd you take that risk? 21 years, I've never had a client look at me and say, because my advisor gets paid in 2 ways, I wanted to compliment my advisor. They told me don't keep them a secret. Never. And I'm never going to. A client perspective is simple. If I'm the kind of person that enjoys being helpful to other people and somebody I care about needs help, I take action. I want to be helpful. The problem there is they do so in a way that doesn't lead to the person they care about getting help. I would encourage your listeners, be prepared for the moment when a client says, I gave your name to someone the other day. And I have handled it the exact same way in every single industry I've been in. Happens to me all the time. Gave your name to someone the other day, Dan, they're going to call you. All I do is say, I appreciate that. Can we talk about it for a minute? And they always say, sure. Like they're confused. Like, what? Yeah. I say, I'm assuming you did that because you think they might need some help or benefit from some advice or some guidance. Is that accurate? I always ask that question because, Paul, what do 100 out of 100 people say? Yes. They always say, yeah, they went through this and I was telling them about you. Yep. All I do is say the problem with that is they don't know and trust us the way that you do. As a result of that, unless there's something very urgent going on, they're unlikely to actually get help. So because that was your reason for doing it, can we just talk about a comfortable way to tee up an introduction? Yep. We increase the likelihood they get some help. Could be an email that we're all CC'd on. What, based on your relationship, whatever's comfortable for you. I cannot tell you how many times I gave your name out turns into, oh yeah, why don't we just send them an email? And hey, I could write it for you if you want, save you the time. Oh, that'd be great. Boom. Connection, introduction, new client. If we could stop the 80% of clients that are not only willing to refer, but trying to refer and coach them on how to effectively help people, we wouldn't need to hire referral coaches because the hard part's already done and the good thing is already happening. We got to rope them in. So hopefully that's helpful to your listeners.
I've taught referrals and how to do it. And ultimately, to me, that's really one of the best ways is to get an introduction. I prefer the word introduction to referral because it's not as intimidating. But ultimately, I need the person to introduce me in a way that A, I'm aware of it, but B, I have the ability to follow up. And what I love about the email is just very low risk. It's just an introduction, but it allows the person being referred to follow up. Whereas what you said before is that if it's simply, oh, I gave someone your name, you're right. Chances are they're not going to take any action for the reasons that you stated. Yeah.
And where people can find me, it's funny because I was so damn busy speaking for so many years. I never even had a web presence or LinkedIn accounts or anything. So right now, I would encourage people to go to school.com/exchange and check that out. People can email me questions, dan@modelfa.com, and inquire about any kind of services. Very soon, we're going to be relaunching our entire brand. We've been rebuilding for about a year and a half. Now that the exchange is live, we're building the whole brand around it. But those are the best places to find me.
Very cool. Dan, thank you for your time. I really enjoyed the conversation. These are things that I'm genuinely interested in, and I love getting your feedback just really as a true expert in the space. So I enjoyed the conversation. I hope our listeners enjoyed the conversation, and I appreciate your time today.
Congrats on what you got going on, Paul. It's a cool service.
Thank you.